Goeienaand, dis 7 uur op 'n Woensdag aan. Baie welkom by Fokus. Ek is Lenet Francis Peren. Die uitstaande skuld aan munisipaliteite beloop meer as 230 miljard rand. In Gauteng beloop dit bykans 50 miljard rand. Onlangs het die Tshwane Metro en die stad Johannesburg gesê, genoeg is nou genoeg. Albei stede het die krag toevoer na onder meer staatsdepartemente, sakeondernemings wat uitstaande skuld het afgesny. Baie van hierdie skuld is toe wel betaal. Maar hoe gebeur dit dat soveel skuld van miljoene rande opgehoop word? Ons praat nou via Zoom met Jordan Griffiths. Hy is die personeelhoof van die kantoor van die Tshwane burgemeester en met Lufuno Mashwao, die waarnemende groepshoof inkomstedienste van die stad Johannesburg. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Jordan, why did it take so long?
So I think critically, one of the issues that the city of Tshwane faced in terms of debt collection was the fact that for years, the city had been incredibly lenient in the manner in which it allowed big debtors to pay off their debts. And one of the challenges in particular was that disputes were being raised on City of Tshwane accounts, and then the debtors were not actually servicing their accounts on an ongoing basis, which is not actually allowed. And this is what allowed the debt to escalate. A big driver of also municipal debt was the COVID-19 pandemic, because there was a mass sort of attempt to allow people a bit of leeway during this economic time. And unfortunately, that also led to a kind of culture of non-payment. But really, these issues also are quite historical, and they go back years in terms of not only residential, but the inability of some major government stakeholders to properly manage their Tshwane accounts, which is why now we've taken a far more aggressive approach.
I understand the aggression, but a lot of consumers want to know why were there certain rules and leniencies for businesses and they weren't afforded the same kind of treatment, Jordan?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things is that this campaign that we are doing now is actually not particularly new. So we're obviously publicizing it now quite aggressively, as you would have seen. But the utilization of cutoffs and disconnections is something that we've been doing persistently for the last few years. What we are finding is that we're not getting the level of responsiveness that we need. And that's why we've actually, I mean, the fundamentally different aspect of now that we're doing is we're naming and shaming government departments, where previously we didn't do that. I'll give you an example. The middle of last year, we even cut off some ministerial houses. We even turned off the power at one of the military bases at Tshwane, and we received payment the very next day. And this was the middle of last year. But what we found is that when we do these campaigns and initiatives on the low key, they don't get the kind of reaction that we need. And so the publication of this campaign over the last 2 weeks has led to a massive influx of payments, both from people that we've targeted and from people who we haven't targeted, who have now realized very clearly that it's not necessarily the disconnection that they're worried about. It's the fact that they'll be named and shamed for mismanagement of their accounts.
How long has this been going on, Lufuno? If we look at the companies involved, we look at hotels, we look at some of these business owners within the city, how long has this been tolerated?
Look, I think as Jordan has indicated, the city of Johannesburg credit control policy very clearly stating that accounts must be paid before due date. But what we've seen is that since the beginning of the pandemic, most businesses have actually fallen into areas. You mentioned hotels. Those are some of the businesses that had to close down completely during the COVID-19 pandemic. And they are really struggling businesses. And now that the economy is slowly going back into normality, we expected that these businesses will start honoring their historical debt. Unfortunately, some of them have not done so. And we, as you've seen, the mayor launched Operation William Teto in February, and that operation is now going to full steam ahead, similar to what our colleagues in Tshwane are doing. We will be going after everyone, and we are going after all our customers that owe the city overdue debt. And you have to also admit that the municipality is not necessarily at the highest preference level when it comes to prioritizing which debt to pay first. Our customers are faced with a number of accounts that they have to service on a monthly basis. And oftentimes they put us right at the bottom end of the decision in terms of their wallet. So we have to take the necessary actions that our policies allow us to, and termination of services is one of those very actions we'll be taking.
I can appreciate the fact that due to the economic challenges that we've experienced, that COVID-19 would be a legitimate reason for the municipalities or businesses to approach City of Joburg. How do they set up these agreements? How did it escalate to this amount? We're talking millions.
So some of the businesses that are owing us a lot of money have raised issues in the past with their bills. And that's part of the process where if a customer believes their bill is not correct, it's really up to the municipality to prove that they have either corrected the bill or the bill is correct as it is. And those disputes sometimes can run into court actions that can take a number of years to resolve. And the bills do escalate into millions of rands. And some of the customers that we're chasing are large users, meaning that their monthly bills alone can be in the millions. I mean, if I give you an example, the Sandton City mall is valued at over 10 billion. So for rates and taxes, we'll be billing them up to 17 million per month, and that's just a monthly bill. So if they don't pay it for 2 months, it's escalating into 30 million or more. So these bills do escalate from time to time, especially on large users of water and electricity. But I think that the key is for the municipality to be able to present an accurate bill and demand payment on it.
Jordan, are the billing issues the main reasons why they either default or fall behind? Because I would imagine you phone a call center or you have an agreement in place, you default on that agreement, you get switched off. How come you get switched on so quickly after that? Do they actually pay or do they bribe service providers? So,
I mean, billing issues are definitely one of the factors, but by no means is it the primary driver. I think in the city of Tshwane there are multiple issues that sort of compound in terms of the escalating debt. I mean, residential suburbs, residential households are the biggest debt owners. So, I mean, our debt book is at about 17 billion. I think my colleague in Joburg, they're at 38 billion. Obviously, a much bigger city also with a number of more residents, but you know, our biggest component of our debtors book is residential households. And that is individual households that are running up debts of 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 Rand on their bills. And that's one of the key problems, which is also, you know, implementing full-scale disconnections for individual residential households can be quite difficult because you need to have a lot of people to do that, which is why we're having a very targeted approach on some of the main consumers. One of the big issues is illegal connections. So we have noticed just in the past, in this week, in fact, today, our city manager was at the Northwest Development Corporation, which is an entity that belongs to the Northwest that has offices here in Tshwane. They have a bill of 55 million Rand. We disconnected them last week. They were reconnected illegally this week. We were there again today. We ripped out the connections. We implemented what we call a RIP connection, which is when we remove the electricity infrastructure. So illegal connections being facilitated either by sort of unscrupulous electricians or even unscrupulous City of Tshwane officials who may go back or return to people and offer them a deal is a big issue, particularly when we're implementing a disconnection process. The other big driver is illegal connections themselves. So people merely illegally connecting to the grid or bypassing meters and effectively finding ways in which they are able to then effectively steal electricity. And this is hugely problematic, big problem for my colleague Lufano in Soweto, for example, where there's a high volume of illegal connections and bypassing of meters that Eskom confronts. So this also drives up your debt in a massive way. Billing disputes, most certainly, yeah, I mean, they do arise, but for us, they're not critical. The city of Tshwane has about 900,000 accounts on our system, and we receive, a few hundred billing disputes per month, but by no means does it justify the high levels of non-payment that exist. And a large function of that is also our ability to just conduct the relevant policing that we need to in order to implement aggressive cut-off procedures. So it is obviously low-hanging fruit, big businesses, government entities, national departments that are simply not paying, because you can very quickly recoup large-scale amounts there. But to implement large-scale disconnections is also very difficult. You need a lot of people, you have a lot of people on the ground, and in many cases you can deal with incredibly hostile communities. That is coming, of course, and part of our process now is to encourage people to make sure that they pay, because let me tell you, once you are disconnected, getting reconnected is not that quick and easy either. You have to pay, we have to process the payment, and then we have to deploy teams when they are available to come and facilitate a reconnection. And many people are learning that the hard way.
Die gedagtes daar van Jordan. Net hierna praat ons verder hier op Fokus, and we'll afford Lufuno the opportunity to respond and speak to precisely that about illegal connections. Moenie weggaan nie, ons is nou terug. Alle staatsdepartemente en sakeondernemings het die afgelope week miljoene rande aan die Tshwane Metro en die stad Johannesburg betaal om hulle agterstallige skuld te delg. Ons praat nou verder met Jordan Griffiths van die Tshwane Metro en met Lufuno Maswai van die stad Johannesburg. Lufuno, I want to afford you that opportunity to talk to us about the challenges of illegal connections and what the city has in place to prevent this.
So part of our Operation Mthetho is to go out in various communities where we find quite a number of illegal connections happening. You will also notice that there's quite a number of informal settlements that continue to mushroom across Johannesburg. And those areas oftentimes would tap into our infrastructure illegally until the process of electrifying them is done and completed. And I mean, this contributes to huge amount of losses that we incur as the municipality, annually, which runs into billions of rand. So illegal connections are indeed part of our strategy in terms of ensuring that we reduce those losses. And ensure that customers are connected legally and we are billing them properly. And I think the pressures with the increasing cost of both electricity and water often pushing customers into some of these actions. But I think it's critical to also mention that the municipality also does provide for those customers that are indigent a number of benefits. They receive free basic water and free basic electricity. We also are running a program which I think we're taking it to council for an extension until end of June, which is our debt rehabilitation program. Also very critical program, acknowledging that some of our customers are in financial distress and really cannot afford to pay the historical debt that has accumulated on their accounts, where we're saying they need to meet us halfway. We write off 50% of their historical debt initially, and in exchange for them paying their municipal bills every month and on time, we then write off the remainder of the historical debt over a 3-year period. This program started in 2019. We've seen over 30,000 customers applying and successfully receiving this benefit. And those customers are now rehabilitated customers, are now paying for their municipal services on a monthly basis, which is what we want to encourage across our entire customer base. Jordan indicated that they've got 900,000 customers. We've got 1.1 million, similar numbers between Joburg and Tshwane. Those are huge number of customers that we're engaging with on a monthly basis. So it's important that we are attending to their queries, as and when they raise them, but most importantly, that the debtors book of 38 billion in Joburg is reduced by these customers starting to pay their bills on a monthly basis.
What has the city of Joburg done about these city officials who've been facilitating these illegal connections?
Yes, so it's city officials, it could be contractors that either worked with the city currently or in the past. Anybody who knows how to operate or work with electricity really can be part of the groups of people that are conducting this illegal connection. And oftentimes, these are individuals that are known within communities. So sometimes it's important for those members of the community that are paying customers to really report to the city whenever these individuals are identified. The city has got our GFIS, Group Forensic Department, which has an anonymous tip-off line. And we encourage anybody who is aware of individuals that are facilitating these illegal connections to report such, and our forensic department investigates and ensure that those individuals are prosecuted. If they are city officials, they'll go through the necessary disciplinary processes within the city, and that has been done a number of times in the past.
Jordan, talk to us about these government departments that have really just had a laissez-faire attitude, that couldn't care less because we work for government. So why care and worry that they're going to be targeted? How come they now pay when they had all this opportunity prior to those agreements to pay up?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very good question. I think the answer is twofold. The first is what you often have is a culture which is that because they are government departments, their assumption is that they will not be cut off. And so there's a level of impunity that's considered. And we obviously have taken a zero tolerance approach to that. We don't only cut the water, we cut the electricity. So we make sure that all services are cut. And we did that last week, Thursday, when we cut PRASA off at their head offices. And we've done it at a number of different entities, a few different departments as well over the last few weeks, the headquarters of the SABC. But what's important to understand about the headquarters of SABC is that it's a landowner. So what you have is in many cases, some departments are housed in a building that the government does not own. It's owned by a private landowner, and that private landowner does not manage the account of the city of Tshwane and assumes that because they are housing an important government department, that the city of Tshwane will not act on the outstanding bills, which is what we have been doing. So in many cases, we've been naming and shaming some of the private landowners who have not been paying. One of our biggest challenges in the city of Tshwane is the Department of Public Works. That department also oversees a large portfolio and cluster of buildings in the city that house national departments. And so we often have to engage with them on their payments, because that's a big issue, that they have come to the party on that. I know my colleague Rufano has similar issues with the provincial equivalent, which exists in the city of Johannesburg. So yeah, there's just maybe a general culture of impunity, which maybe some adopt, and then haphazardly neglect their ability to pay their accounts. And as the city, we've just allowed that to persist for too long. It's created a definitive non-payment culture, which is really problematic. And so now we're really taking a totally zero tolerance approach. We issue a notice, a final demand, and then we cut you off. Doesn't matter who you are, what business you run, or what government entity or national department you represent.
I was about to ask you if there's a threshold when you decide the hierarchy of who we target first. Does it have to be over 1 million?
So no, not really. We obviously we do it in a manner that is strategic geographically, if that makes sense. So we don't necessarily chase only high amounts, but we need to deploy our teams in a way where they are able to move from location to location in the shortest amount of time. So what we've done is we've created almost 10 different working streams that deploy to different geographical locations where a number of non-paying entities are housed. So sometimes they'll be making disconnections for a few million, sometimes they'll be making disconnections for a few 100,000 in that range. But right now we're focusing, we are generally focusing on bills that are well above 100,000 Rand, R500,000 Rand, and those that are in the millions of rands, single figures and in some case multi-million Rand amounts as well.
Okay, we're quickly going to take a break, and when we come back we continue discussing that. Meer as 1 miljoen ongeag wat jy moet skuld of moet betaal, hulle is op jou spoor. Bly ingeskakel, daar's nog vrae wat ons net hierna sal hanteer. Ons is nou terug. Welkom terug. Gaan die miljoene rande aan agterstallige skuld wat die stad Johannesburg en die Tshwane Metro die afgelope tyd ingevorder het, wel 'n verskil maak aan die stede se finansies. Ons praat met Jordan Griffiths van die Tshwane Metro en met Lufuna Mashwai van die stad Johannesburg. Lufuna, before we end this conversation tonight, how much money have you been able to recoup thus far?
Well, our monthly collection targets ranges between 4 billion and 4.3 billion. That translates in average monthly daily targets of about 220 million Rand. So, for the month of February, we are pretty much in line with our targeted collection, which I think is showing that the communities out there are coming to the realization that we are coming out to really try and encourage our customers to pay for their municipal services. So they're hitting the calls. People are coming in their numbers to make arrangements at the city's walk-in centers. And we're really waiting for them to come through so we can assist them. If they really cannot pay off their debt immediately, we're making arrangements for them to pay it over a number of months. So yeah, the result of these operations are that people are really coming forward to pay municipality for what.
It sounds though that some businesses aren't forthcoming, and you've had to face off with some lawyers as well.
No, absolutely. Where we were met with resistance, we're also ready to take the appropriate action. So there are a number of businesses that we've gone out to cut off, and they've resisted in terms of initially allowing us access. But like Tshwane is doing, we're going out now with our colleagues from the JMPD to ensure that we really are allowed access to our infrastructure and we are able to do the necessary cutoff. And really, if we have to go to court, we're also ready with our legal team. We ensure that these matters that we are chasing are properly analyzed, and we are not going to try and sort of a customer that has a valid dispute with us. We will always go for the ones that we know that we've addressed whatever issues there was, and the money is due and payable.
Thank you so much, Jordan and Lufuna, for joining us this evening on Fokus. We hope it's more than just a PR exercise. We appreciate your time. Dit is dan al vir vanaand, en nou Fokus word elke donderdagoggend om 10:30 op SABC 2 herhaal, en ons is ook steeds beskikbaar op YouTube. Al wat jy moet doen, as jy kan ons volg op ons Facebookblad by Fokus SABC, of dan vir ons volg op Twitter by Fokus ZA. Jy kan ook vir ons 'n e-pos stuur aan fokus@sabc.co.za. Ons hoop jy kan volgende Woensdag aand om 7 weer hier op SABC 2 by ons aansluit. Sien jou dan. Moenie vergeet nie, as jy kan, betaal jou rekening of andersins maak en gaan 'n ooreenkoms aan. Mooi bly.